Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Thoughtful Talent Show. I'm Jen Werner from Jen Werner Coaching.
And I'm Chad Ahern from Tom Teams Consulting. And today, this is a special episode. As you can see, first of all, Jen and I are in person together. We are actually here at the Gallup at Work Summit in Omaha, Nebraska, where we've just enjoyed we're about to start our second day, so we've had a full day of learning already. And we thought we'd take a few minutes to just share some of maybe our top 5 learnings from day one.
Sure.
And so Jen, I'm gonna let you lead off with your first thoughts, and then I'll share mine.
Okay, mine are really burnout, trust, and vacuums. So
Okay.
as you'd expect, Gallup is full of statistics and numbers. So yesterday's sessions were full of information and little nuggets that I like. 69% of the workforce is currently experiencing some sort of burnout. So 26% all the time or always, or some and are often, and 43% are sometimes burnt out. So that's a huge number. So and what I learned that was most interesting to me is that our normal coping mechanisms for burnout might not be the best way to deal with that. So I want to say to all my high achievers out there, be a little bit comfortable. This is another thing I learned with that incompleteness, right? So just because you have purpose and you're highly engaged doesn't mean that you can't be burnt out. So yeah, of course, because we just don't stop working, right? Another one that I really liked was that only 2 in 10 employees trust their leaders. And I was like, ooh, that's a horrible statistic, right? How are we getting anywhere if that's the case? And what they're finding is that leaders actually tend to be more engaged and thriving and more likely to recommend their company and their services to their
network.
To their network than managers or the individual contributors. I'm like, ooh, there's a big disconnect there.
Yeah.
And how can we use maybe some 360s to give that feedback back to the managers and to the leaders of the company, so that they see what the individual contributors and the managers see. And then my last one, it was really about the vacuums, right? So this was all about remote and hybrid workers.
Okay.
My favorite,
not a session I was in, by the way.
My most favorite one. 3 in 10 workers are fully remote. 5 in 10 workers are hybrid, and only 2 in 10 workers right now are actually on site in person.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, that's huge. Well, and then 1 of those 2 would prefer to work hybrid. And so really 9 out of 10 employees want that flexibility. So, whether you're making a decision for your company or not, it's something that you have to take in all of the background, all of the feedback, and really decide what's best for your business. Because as I learned yesterday from Benjamin, that you cannot make decisions in a vacuum because they're small and they suck.
That's an awesome quote. I love that one. So I actually, I'm going to share sort of a quick highlight from each of the sessions that I went through. So I did go to the burnout one, and I was just struck by the incredible impact that quick connect conversations have on the people that managers are leading. They highlighted a stat that said, when managers are making those quick connects and having meaningful conversations and making their people feel supported, people are 70% less likely to be burned out. So almost kind of the counterpoint of what Jen was saying of, there are so many people experiencing it, but it's a simple, not a fix, it's not a silver bullet, but it's a very easy thing for managers to do. And I know that that's something that you and I cover in the coaching that we do, really highlighting, managers taking that 5 to 7 minutes to just check in, and it doesn't have to be long. So that was
meaningful, right? That was the key point there.
It's got to be meaningful, and a lot of people take meaningful to mean long, and that's not the fact. It's really about being genuine and really connecting and making sure that that person feels supported. So that was my takeaway from the first session. Then I went to a session on how to improve team coaching, and while I will share more about this when we get back to our respective homes, but they introduced a really interesting way to look at what's known as the team grid. So if you've got a team and you can put all of their themes on basically an Excel spreadsheet with their themes listed 1 through 5, they introduced a really interesting way of what does the team tune into in terms of what based on their themes, and what do they tune out. So if you have a number of themes that are really low or non-existent on a team, are they essentially tuning out that part of the conversation because they just don't have the talents to relate to it? The reverse is if you have a team really strong in certain themes, how do you kind of not label it, but how do you start talking about that? So tuning in and tuning out through the team grid, I thought was a really fascinating
really cool
exercise. So I'll be sharing more about that once we get back.
Awesome.
Then I went to a session on in coaching, whether you ask versus advise. And I think one of the really fascinating takeaways I got from that was a lot of times companies will engage coaches like us, but then not give their employees the capacity, the space to actually implement the coaching suggestions. It's, well, you have to do the coaching and what they're suggesting on top of your existing pile of work. And when companies don't make that capacity, actually investing in coaching with coaches like us is actually counterproductive, because now the coaching individual, the person that's getting the coaching, actually feels extra pressure to try and do everything that their the coach is suggesting to do, or that they've made the ahas about, but then they don't have any time, space, or mental capacity to do anything with it. So I thought it was just a really interesting thing to keep in mind as our coaching, potential coaching client companies come to us. Are you actually taking the time to set up, hey, we're going to do coaching, and we're going to take some things either off your plate or make time so that you actually do that. So that was a really interesting takeaway. And then I went to a session on manager development.
Nice.
So we've got the leaders that set the big strategy and the vision. This is a session really about the day-to-day frontline managers, the people that were responsible for helping their people. And the overall, and that session was filled with so many stats, and as analytical, I would love to bring those, but there were so many to process. But the real big takeaway, I think this is really important, is the outsized impact of managers. So many companies right now are investing their big development dollars on the top end leaders, the CEOs, the C-suite, and so forth. What they actually find is that the managers have an outsized impact, and so actually you should be thinking about investing your development dollars in your frontline managers, because the impacts on engagement, on productivity, on profitability all go through the roof.
And they touch so many more people.
And they touch so many more people that are really kind of doing the work.
Right.
And so just I thought, for those of you that might be watching this and thinking, where do I spend my dollars this year? I'd really encourage you to not think about your C-suite. I'd encourage you to think about your frontline leaders. And then my final takeaway is actually from the closing, day one closing keynote, where we got to hear an amazing conversation with Arianna Huffington, which was just phenomenal. And one of the quotes that she shared is actually from the poet Rumi. And I think it's a beautiful counter to my deliberative, because it's all about risk. And she shared this awesome quote, and it says, I'm going to read it, live your life like everything is rigged in your favor. And I think sometimes, I don't know about Jen's deliberative talents, but I know mine, I'm always a little cautious about, is this actually going to work out for me? Or is the risk low enough for me to actually engage with a certain opportunity? And I think this was a beautiful reminder of just, approach life like things are going to work out.
Well, and when you look back in the past, like even when the worst things have happened, they've turned out for good. So
we're both still sitting here.
Yeah, so. right. We made it. So it's regardless of the flights and things on the way. But that's the one thing that I loved about that too. So I'm glad you brought that quote, because I was going to if you didn't.
Awesome. Well, those are quick takeaways
Yeah.
from the Gallup at Work Summit.
We will be back with lots more content and
Yes.
sharing with you all the different things we get to learn today and more detail from yesterday.
Yeah. So from now, I'm Chad A. from Talent Team Consulting,
And I'm Jen Werner from Jen Werner Coaching.
signing off from the Gallup Summit, and we'll see you all later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.